In that silent, early morning, with her husband sleeping on the couch and her 2 children snoring in their room, she pressed her trembling hands against the kitchen sink, took a deep breath, and whispered to herself,
I'm not gonna lose my family! Not now! Not like this!
That was the moment when everything began to change. Before we dive into this powerful story, go ahead and hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and share this video. These stories only continue because you support us. And every comment you leave motivates us to keep creating stories that truly touch lives. Now let's get to what matters. The house was too quiet that morning. And quietness, for Megan, was never synonymous with peace. Too much silence meant trouble. It meant something was out of place, and she had been feeling it for months. It was Monday, and like every Monday in adult life, chaos started early. The alarm went off at 5:40 in the morning. The dog, Bruno, was already pawing at the bedroom door wanting to go out. The kids, Emma, 9 years old, and Noah, 12, still wrapped in their blankets, about to wage the classic war against the clock. And her husband, Daniel, well, he wasn't waking up like he used to. Before, he used to share the routine with her. Now, he seemed trapped somewhere between exhaustion, irritation, and a silence that hurt more than any argument. Megan got up slowly, feeling the accumulated weight on her back. It wasn't a physical weight. It was the emotional weight of carrying an entire household in her hands, something so many women do every day, and no one seems to truly notice. She went downstairs carefully so as not to wake the children, opened the back door, and let Bruno run around the yard. The cold morning air touched her face like an uncomfortable reminder. Another day ahead, another invisible marathon. To others, neighbors, co-workers, even family members, Megan seemed like the woman who had it all together. The mom who showed up to every school event. The wife who tried to keep the peace. The dedicated employee, the friend who listened to everyone. The woman who wore a smile on her face and always said, "Everything's fine, I'll figure it out." But inside, what Megan carried was much more real, much heavier. The silent exhaustion, the lack of time for herself, the mental overload, the feeling of walking alone even when accompanied. And the guilt, always the guilt. Guilt for being tired, guilt for not being good enough, guilt for feeling like the marriage was slipping through her fingers. She missed when she and Daniel were partners, not just roommates splitting bills and tasks. In recent months, everything had started to change. Daniel was coming home later, talking less. And when he did talk, his tone was dry, short, almost impatient. He seemed tired of her, of life, of everything. And Megan, who always tried to maintain the household's upbeat spirit, did her best not to break in the middle of it all. "Do you want to talk?" "Not now." "Did something happen at work?" "I'm tired, Megan. Always tired. And she was too. But no one seemed to see it." With the coffee ready, Megan placed 2 plates on the table. Pancakes for the kids, toast for Daniel. He didn't eat pancakes anymore. Too many carbs, as he would say. The kids came running downstairs, talking over each other, arguing over a colored pencil. Megan smiled. Even tired, she loved that chaos. But Daniel came down different. Serious face, backpack on his shoulders, didn't even sit at the table. "Good morning," she ventured. "Good morning," he replied without looking at her. He grabbed the coffee, drank it quickly, opened the door, and left. The kids fell silent for a few seconds. Emma was the first to ask, "Mommy, is Daddy mad at you?" Megan felt the question like a punch to the stomach. She took a deep breath, smiled like someone putting a Band-Aid on an open wound, and answered, "He's just tired, sweetheart. It'll pass." But she knew it wouldn't pass on its own. She felt the marriage slipping through her fingers, and no one seemed to notice. No one, except her. After dropping the kids off at school, Megan went to work. She worked as an administrative assistant at a small local company. A job that demanded a lot and recognized little. But it was what sustained a good part of the bills, since Daniel was facing cuts and uncertainties at his company. Arriving there, everything seemed more demanding than normal. Accumulated projects, urgent emails, last-minute meetings, and that constant feeling that if she made one mistake, everything would come crashing down. At 10 o'clock, she received a message from the school. Noah had forgotten the materials for his science project that needed to be turned in. At 11 o'clock, her boss asked for an extra report. At noon, the veterinarian called saying Bruno needed to make another appointment, pending diagnosis. Life had this cruel way of testing those who were already at their limit. At 3 in the afternoon, Daniel finally sent a message. "We need to talk when I get home." 3 words that freeze any woman. 3 words that made Megan's ground shake. Her heart tightened. Her breathing failed. Her imagination ran to every possible scenario. None of them good. She tried to work, but her hands were shaking so much she could barely type. At the end of the afternoon, traffic was unbearable. The horns, lights, external noise, all mixed with her internal chaos. When she finally parked the car in the garage, she took a deep breath before going in. Bruno ran to her, wagging his tail with that innocence that only dogs have. And that was the first thing that softened her heart that day. The kids were in the living room doing homework, and Daniel in the bedroom, door closed. She swallowed hard. Dinner came out okay. The kids argued. Daniel left the table too quickly. And Megan, even trying to maintain the upbeat mood, seemed to be holding back a dam about to burst. At 10 o'clock at night, when everyone had already gone to sleep, she was alone in the kitchen, washing dishes, organizing the mess, holding her own world with both hands. It was there, in that silent and cold environment, that the reflection came. How much longer can I take this? Megan leaned her hands on the sink, rested her head, and let the tears come. A silent, deep, heavy cry. A cry that only those who hold a family on their backs understand. She wasn't crying because she was weak. She was crying because she had been trying too hard for too long. And it was at that exact moment that Daniel appeared in the kitchen doorway. He had come down to get water, and he saw her like that. "Megan, are you crying?" She took a deep breath, quickly wiped her face, and said, "The kitchen was lit only by the dim light of the range hood. The whole house was asleep." And Megan remained there, with her heart racing and her hands still trembling when she repeated, "Daniel, we need to talk." He set the glass on the counter, as if preparing for something he had been postponing for months. There was weight in his eyes, not anger, weight. He took a deep breath. "Then why don't you talk to me?" she tried with a broken voice. Megan felt her stomach drop. It was the first time in a long time that he showed vulnerability. "Then start anywhere," she asked. "But start." He seemed older than he actually was, the kind of wear that doesn't come from time, but from life. "Megan," he murmured, "I don't know who I am anymore. At work, things are falling apart. I'm afraid of being fired. The pressure is insane. Every day someone gets cut, someone packs their things in a box and leaves. I stay there, trying to look strong, but I can't take it. And when I get home, it feels like I have no energy for anything else." "I thought you were mad at me," she whispered. "I'm frustrated with myself." He had always been the family's safe harbor. Seeing Daniel like this was like seeing a broken giant. She watched him and, for a moment, felt guilt mixed with understanding. Because she understood his fear, but she also knew that her own pain had been ignored for too long. "Daniel, do you realize that I'm at my limit too?" she asked with a soft but firm voice. He raised his eyes. "I know," he admitted, "but I thought you handled everything better. You always seem so... Just because I'm strong doesn't mean I don't feel," she responded. "But I'm exhausted, Daniel. I'm carrying the house, the kids, work, the routine, and trying to keep the peace, alone." The words echoed through the kitchen. Daniel closed his eyes as if he had taken an emotional punch. "I didn't want you to feel alone," he said with a low voice. "But I am," she completed, "and that scares me." They stood there, face to face, without shouting, without accusations, just two hurt people trying to find each other again. "Do you remember when we fought together? When we supported each other? When one held the other up?" "I remember," he murmured. "Because I didn't want to worry you with my problems," he confessed. "And I ended up distancing myself. That was the wound. Distance, silence. And two adults trying to survive the emotional tsunami of modern life." Megan took a deep breath and said what so many women feel, but rarely verbalize. "I don't need you to be perfect. I just need you to be here, with me. I don't want to carry the whole family alone. I can't anymore." The tears rolled down discreetly, not from despair, but from truth. Daniel wiped his face. He moved closer, and for the first time in months, he touched her hand without rushing. "I'm sorry, Megan. I really left you alone." She squeezed his hand with that emotional strength that only resilient women have. "Then come back here," she asked. "I'm fighting for us, but I need you to fight too." He nodded. They sat at the table and talked for almost 2 hours. They talked about fear, frustration, routine, exhaustion, responsibilities, finances, expectations, mistakes, hurts, everything that had been swept under the rug. And for the first time in a long time, Megan felt her chest open a little. The pain didn't disappear, but it found space to breathe. At the end of the conversation, Daniel said something she didn't expect. "I'm afraid of losing you, Meg." She held his face, looking into his eyes. "You won't lose me," she said. "Not if we're fighting in the same direction." It was simple. But life doesn't give breaks. They woke up to the sound of the kids arguing in the hallway, Bruno barking, the toaster burning bread, total chaos. And Megan realized that even after the conversation, nothing had changed, like in the movies. Everything was still difficult. The routine was still exhausting. The weight was still there. But something new had emerged. Hope. Not that naive hope, but mature, conscious hope that knows that reconstruction is slow, laborious, and full of ups and downs. She sat down. It means I'm going to have more workload, more pressure, more everything." Megan held her breath. It was her fear happening right before her eyes, a new tsunami about to arrive. Daniel turned the envelope toward her. "But I want to show you something," he said. It was a brochure for corporate therapy and emotional support. The company offered sessions, and I scheduled the first one for next week. Megan looked away because she felt tears rising. He continued, "I don't want to go back to being that guy who hides from you. I'm fighting, Meg. For real." She took a deep breath. She felt her chest open. He wasn't just coming back anymore. He was growing. While Daniel sought help, Megan began her own transformation. She went back to running in the park, something she had abandoned months ago. She resumed the habit of reading before bed. She scheduled an appointment with the therapist she always postponed. She enrolled in an online course she had dreamed of taking. For the first time, she was investing in herself without waiting for permission. And surprisingly, Daniel supported it. "Go, Meg! I'll stay with the kids! Go do your things." That phrase sounded like freedom, like recognition, like respect. The kids began to notice that something was different. Breakfasts were no longer silent. Dinners gained laughter. Bruno, the dog, went back to running around the house like before. It was as if the energy of the house had changed color. From gray to something alive, something warm. But no reconstruction exists without a test. On a Friday night, Megan came home exhausted, her head heavy, her body begging for rest. Seeing the messy living room, toys scattered, dishes in the sink, she simply broke down. "I can't take it," she murmured, letting the tears fall for the first time in days. Daniel appeared in the doorway, surprised. "What happened?" She shook her head. "I'm too tired, Daniel. I tried so hard, I'm trying every day. But today is too heavy." Daniel walked over to her, and this time did what months before he wouldn't have done. He didn't try to fix it. He didn't try to interrupt. He didn't try to minimize. He just hugged. Strong, warm, present. "I'm here, Meg, I'm here," he repeated, holding her as if holding someone who had emerged from their own chaos. It was one of the first times Megan cried in his arms without fear of being judged, and one of the first times Daniel stayed without trying to run from the pain. When the tears dried up, he said, "Let's do this. I'll clean up the living room, put the kids to bed, and you go take a hot bath. Then we'll watch a movie. Just the two of us. You need to rest, Meg, and I want to be part of that. Not just watch you wear yourself out." The words entered her like balm. For the first time in a long time, she felt that she wasn't carrying the family alone. They watched the movie together that night, leaning against each other, with their legs intertwined and calm breathing. It seemed simple, almost small. But for Megan, that was everything. It was the kind of love that matures, that is reborn, that adapts, that learns. A few weeks later, on a sunny Sunday morning, Megan woke up before everyone. She made coffee. She opened the door for Bruno to run in the yard. She listened to the calm sound of the house waking up slowly. Daniel came down the stairs with the kids behind him, messy, sleepy, smiling. He looked at her as one looks at something precious. "We're okay, aren't we?" he asked. Megan touched her chest, an instinctive gesture. "We're walking," she replied, "and that's enough." Daniel smiled, a smile full of life, full of future. "Thank you for not giving up on us, Meg." She brought her face close to his. "Thank you for coming back to the fight with me." The kids hugged them both. Bruno barked. The house seemed to breathe together. And Megan understood with profound clarity, strength is not carrying everything alone. Strength is choosing to continue, even when life tries to tear that away from you. It was at that moment, on that ordinary Sunday morning, that she finally realized the day she decided not to give up was the day she began to find herself again, and the day they began to rebuild something better than before. Soft music returns. Sometimes life doesn't ask you to be perfect. It only asks that you don't give up on yourself. Because when you choose to continue, your entire world finds a way to continue with you. If this story touched your heart, leave a like and share it with someone who might need to hear this today. And if you want to keep receiving deep stories like this, subscribe to the channel and leave your comment. It makes all the difference, so we can continue bringing stories that inspire, heal, and transform lives.